All right, we're at part 3 of chapter 2 lecture. So we were talking about polysaccharides, poly meaning many, and polysaccharides that are not digestible. So cellulose is found in plants, and that's what makes up fiber in our food. But it's really good for us. It's been tied to good colon health and also decreasing colon cancer. So good stuff. So cellulose in our diet, fiber is indigestible, but still aids in digestion and has numerous health benefits. Fiber, right? So it's also known as roughage, helps with colon cancer prevention, reduction, really important. So some complex carbohydrates, including chitin and cellulose, cannot be digested by most animals. Such indigestible carbohydrates in diet are called fiber, aid in digestion, have numerous health benefits. So they're still important for us. All right, so that finished carbohydrates. Again, I'm going really quickly. In reality, again, this would have been an hour and a half lecture, and then lipids, proteins would be another hour and a half. I mean, the whole thing would be a week. So going quickly, and I really would suggest you read the book. The book, and especially if you're into nutrition and you find this interesting, Jay Phelan, the author of the book, is really good at talking about this stuff, and I find it interesting. Okay, next big category. So carbohydrates was one. Now lipids. Lipids are our fats, okay? So here's this little guy, tons of fat, tons of blubber, and we could say, what's the function? What does it do for this guy? Insulation, yeah. So lipids store energy for a rainy day. In reality, lipids do that if we're talking about metabolism, but that's not the only thing that lipids do. Okay, this is an important figure because it shows the different types of lipids and their jobs. So this is an important figure, right? So what is it about lipids? Here's the emperor penguin, right? Tons of fat. Again, for insulation, it says insulating effect of fat is able to thrive in extreme cold of Antarctica. So here, what is it? They're non-polar molecules, do not dissolve in water. They're also made out of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and they don't, fat and water doesn't mix, lipids and water don't mix, so that's one of the characteristics of fat. Greasy to the touch. Think of McDonald's fries, right? If you put the McDonald's fries on a napkin and all that grease and it's like greasy, oily, that's fat. Can be a significant source of energy. Yes. Okay, so there it is. So different categories. Fats, long-term energy, storage and insulation. Sterols. They are the precursors. What that means is our cells use them to make steroids, okay? Those are the sex hormones. They're not bad, okay? Usually we think of steroids, we think of bad, but in reality, our body makes these hormones. They're normal, natural hormones. What's bad is if people take too much and abuse them. And lastly, phospholipids, phospho and lipids, these are what make up cell membranes, okay? So in regards to fats, to lipids, it could be fats, sterols, and phospholipids. So they're huge molecules. Look, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Carbon, again, these are covalent bonds. Hydrogen, those are covalent bonds, and oxygen. And then these huge tails, okay? And the energy, again, the energy is stored in those covalent bonds. When cells break those bonds, they release the energy. We love it. We love fat, okay? There's a reason for that, okay? Evolutionary speaking, our ancestors, right? If they developed a taste for fat, okay, they got a lot of energy. You got a lot of energy for your punch. And those people survived. And if they survived, they passed on their DNA. They've passed on their likes, okay, their behavior. So it says fat molecules contain much more stored energy than carbohydrates. So here, because fats store much larger amounts of energy, strong taste preference for fats over other energy sources is evolved in animals. Yes. Okay, we like it. There's a reason it's been advantageous, evolutionary speaking. Saturated versus unsaturated. When something is saturated, think of like it's like a sponge, it's saturated with stuff. So saturated versus unsaturated fats, what they're talking about are those bonds between the carbons and the hydrogen. And if every carbon is fully bonded to the hydrogens, that's called saturated fats. So those are generally solid at room temperature. So butter, cheese, right? In regards to health, is that considered healthy? Versus unsaturated, every carbon is not fully bonded to every hydrogen. And so they have these little kinky tails. And so think of like salmon fat, or think of oil, like olive oil, so on. So unsaturated fats are actually considered healthier for us than saturated. Hydrogenation, it's this process. We thought, oh gosh, if unsaturated fats are healthier for us, what if we change them a little bit so that they can have a longer shelf life, which we did. But now we found out that actually our bodies have a hard time breaking them down, so they're actually not good for us. So it says hydrogenation can improve a food's taste, texture, shelf life. So we're talking about at the grocery store. But it also makes the food less healthful. So think of donuts, right? Donuts are packed with fat and sugar, and we love them, right? But it's not good for us. So it talks about hydrogenation. You guys, of course, I'm going to go quickly through some of the slides. You guys can pause and look. So it shows what hydrogenation does. Cholesterol. You hear about cholesterol and you think it's bad. It's not, okay? Cholesterol are the precursors to the sex hormones, okay? It says not all lipids are fats, the sterols. So here's cholesterol. This is actually, there's carbons here and hydrogens. Here's an oxygen. Change it a little bit, it becomes a sex hormone. So estrogen in women, testosterone in men. By the way, it's just women have more estrogen, men have more testosterone. So the precursor molecule are cholesterol, which are lipids. Cholesterol is also important in cell membranes. Okay, steroids. Here's this guy. Who's this guy? Right? We're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course. So steroids, the sex hormone. So testosterone for males. That's what makes the cells grow, right? Get bigger muscles, bigger bones, etc. So men already have that, right? They have testes, which produce testosterone. But what if an athlete wants to get bigger, wants to get stronger, faster? How's he going to do that? Well, okay, we're not supposed to do this, right? But they can take extra hormones and they can get bigger, stronger, right? But in competitive sports, that's considered cheating, right? And so they're tested for these hormones. So estrogen for women, testosterone, and the synthetic variants, because testosterone is what makes the big bones and big muscles, stimulates muscle growth, stimulates cell metabolism. Phospholipids, lastly, major components of cell membranes. Waxes are strongly hydrophobic. Means nothing to you right now, but it will. The next chapter we get into is cells. So the phospholipid is what makes the cell membrane, and there's lipids in there. Since water, it's an aquatic environment, there's water inside the cell, water outside the cell, and lipids and fats and water don't mix, that the lipids help maintain the cell shape, and the water can't destroy those lipids, right? We said water is a really good solvent. All right, so here's the phospholipids. There's a phosphate group in the lipid tails, and that actually makes the cell membrane. All right, so that finishes off the lipids, okay? Now to get into proteins. Again, these slides are important because they give you, they're like summary slides. So don't skip them, just look at them, right? But I just don't want to repeat myself, and there's the time component. So, right, so make sure you look at them. And of course, as you're viewing the video, you can always pause the video. All right, so now protein, the next big molecule. So carbohydrates was one, lipids was another one, now proteins. So when you think of proteins, what do you think of? Usually you think of muscle, yes? Okay, well, yes, but proteins have other functions too. So you see these two little guys, they're super cute, right? Or super ugly, right? But they're growing, and there's protein in their feathers. There's protein in their skin. Proteins are building blocks for things. So it says proteins are versatile macromolecules that serve as building blocks. This is an important slide, yeah? It shows the different functions of proteins. So proteins perform a variety of different functions. They all, however, are built the same way and form the same the same raw materials. So structure, hair, fingernails, feathers, horns, cartilage, tendons. So your nails, right, made out of protein. Your skin is made out of protein. Your hair is made out of protein. Protection, antibodies are made out of protein. Regulation, right? Hormones, some hormones are lipids, okay? Some hormones are made out of protein. Of course, muscle. This is cardiac muscle. I don't know if you knew that. Here are the intercalated discs between the cardiac muscles, kind of really cool. But muscles are made out of protein. And lastly here, transportation. Yes, when we get into chapter 3, we're going to talk about transport through the cell membrane. So proteins serve those functions. So this slide shows, many functions of proteins. Well, what are proteins made of? Okay, so here's this huge molecule. What's it made of? Okay, it's made out of these things called amino acids. Okay, you may have heard of amino acids like with our diet. Okay, so you put the amino acids together, form a big chain, that's a protein. Okay, and in our diet, we only have 20 amino acids, but we can make hundreds of proteins. So then you ask yourself, how is that? Okay, think of letters in our alphabet, right? We only have, 26 letters in the alphabet, but we can make hundreds of words, okay? It's all in what letters are we using? What's the arrangement of the letters? Like think of cat, C-A-T, versus act, A-C-T. The letters are the same, it's just the arrangement, okay? Same thing with amino acids, right? We have 20 amino acids, but you arrange them differently, you make a different protein, or like spell a different protein. Okay, so 20 different types of amino acids strung together to make protein. A protein could be 100 amino acid. A protein could be thousands of amino acids. So they could be huge molecules, right? The combinations of the amino acids give rise to the proteins, the chief building blocks of physical structure that make up all organisms. Proteins perform a myriad of functions, from assisting chemical reactions causing blood clotting to building bones to fighting microorganisms. So proteins are incredibly important in our body. Essential amino acids, incomplete proteins, complementary proteins. So we can think of, where do we get proteins? Just like, where do we get carbohydrates? Where do we get lipids? Where do we get proteins? Where? Yeah, our diet, okay? So in our diet, there are things that are complete proteins, right? So here are amino acids, right? And there are certain foods like beans are full of protein. Meat has all the essential proteins. So here, I love this. I love that they included this. It says, traditional dishes in many cultures combine proteins, bringing together all the essential amino acids. And in order to build muscle, right? You need all the essential amino acids in your diet. So if you're a vegetarian, that's okay. You just got to make sure that you're getting different types of plant material that has all the amino acids. Okay, I'm going to have to stop this video and we'll have one more.